I really don't know the protocol of Rotary, so if I make mistakes, I apologize. I thought this was a small event. And I enter, I see people, look at Joan. I see people who I haven't seen in a long time. I see very many important people, and I don't know who is who. I see people with big badges with a small golden pins. So I don't know the ranking, so I apologize. Let me just address you as brothers and sisters. I hope that's okay. And people who come together to do good things.
Mr. Odrick, Chairman, my question is just one. After mindset, attitude, and significancy, how can I maintain a balance and avoid burnout while pursuing success? Thank you so much.
My question is simple. You gave us a big story, and my question is, you as a person, at what point do you think that here is failure? Because you may think that's a failure, yet actually for that stage, it's a success. So how do you determine what you're calling a failure?
Thank you so much for that great presentation. I'd like to invite you to Rotary, because in Rotary you join by invitation. And you can choose any club that makes you happy here. We have so many clubs here today, but you can choose a club of your choice. Thank you very much, sir.
My name is Robert, and I'm the president of the Rotary Club of Kasubi. Now, I would like to borrow your wisdom, Audrey. Do you think that Idi Amin's decision of kicking out Asians was influenced by the incident that happened at Kampala Club? Or he was actually motivated by the love of his country and the desire to save it from those who are exploiting it? You've just said that good leaders know before the people they lead get to know. Thank you.
I had a school, and I know there are educationists in this place. I like the way you started with a mindset for the young children and the youth. When it comes to our education system, what would you advise us as educationists and parents in this generation? What should we do for our children?
I'd want to find out, in terms of success, isn't there also play of maybe luck? You can all be writing articles, but one person somehow, is it luck? Is it God? Is it favor? Is it because you come from a certain place? As in there are also places of success due to, I know, Gambanogu, something like that.
My name is Jacob Mwesegwa, Rotarian Kampala Impala, and my question is in two phases. We understand that the talk about mindset and about youth, but we also need to talk about the mindset of the generation that comes before the youth. It is within our area of expectations that the leaders that are before us need to also put themselves in an area that they can understand the youth, because the youth actually view upon the leaders that we currently have. So what should the generation before the youth or that precedes the youth be able to change their mindsets about? Right now we are going through a digitization scheme, but then the generation that comes before is still skeptical about this.
Top-notch schools charge 4 million school fees a term. And everybody in this room is running to take children to those schools. Because they associate success to such schools. And I want you to help us. water down those expectations, because parents are shouting after they have completed from such schools and they cannot find jobs. They are as ordinary as any other child from any other school. Now, and at the end of the day, they are regretting, why did I pay 4 million a term? How I wish I started a business with that money for my son or daughter. Help us. Does studying from such schools a guarantee for success, or it is a gamble?
Let's start with health to avoid burnout. So there are 4 things I know in terms of health. First, it's called sleep. And sleep, we don't get enough of it because we're half awake, even when we're in bed, thinking of what to do tomorrow. Sleep allows the extraction of dead cells from our brains. It's called cerebrospinal fluids. So the taka that has died in the day gets out when you sleep. So 6 minimum, the best 8 hours of sleep to maintain your health. The second thing I know, and so please know that there is a principle, there is practice. There is a precept, there is the real of what everyone gets out of their day in life. So I'm not a doctor prescribing how many hours you should sleep. I'm just working through a basic principle. The second one is nutrition. Nutrition. We all know this, that what we put in our stomachs eventually becomes who we are in many ways. And so therefore, if we pack a lot of carbo, so I like cassava, I like potatoes, I like vegetable things which I grew with my own hands when I was growing up. I reduced, I stopped milk because I drank all the milk I needed between age 1 and 7. And then now I just put a drop because I had become addicted to coffee, 8 cups a day, 8 mugs a day, and I would feel my heart pulping at some stage. So I stopped it, and now went back to tea, and tea, I know that milk and casein, I don't go well with it. So in other words, I'm just trying to tell you, your body is different. Choose what you're eating. Carbo before you go to sleep, there are doctors here who will tell you it's storing a lot of sugar and many other things I don't want to talk about. The third one is exercise. So when you pass the age 50, actually maybe 40, we should be careful because you are what you are at 50 because of what you packed in your 40s. You are what you are in your 40s because of what you packed in your 30s. Life is amazing. Huh? It doesn't give you what you've not stored in it. Huh? So you can complain about things, but if you don't store up, somehow life comes back, hits you. So these days when I go to the gym, I run so that my heart is clear. I exercise particular muscles because I'm worried about muscle atrophy. I exercise some bones because I'm worried about bone atrophy in my 70s. And so I have to keep lean. So I'm not just in the gym for muscles. I'm in the gym deliberately to exercise particular parts of the body so that I can have some longer life, God willing. Yeah? And then finally, number 4 that I know, someone asked this question, I hope that you are listening, and people can contradict me, but these for me are my principles. The 4th one I know is emotional health. To really not let your head really and your heart. Huh? So my parents, every evening, they took their Bible and sat at the front of their little house, and my father would say, Muchara, nsonyiwa ebyabaddeko olwaleero bye naayogedde nga bibi nsonyiwa. And then, do we all understand Luganda? He would say that in Runyakitara, of course, not Luganda. Now, his wife would say, Mwami, nsonyiwa, forgive me if I offended you today, because I don't know, at midnight, Jesus might return, and I am a sinner. So let's go to bed when we are clean. That's dealing with emotional health in a particular way. So deal with emotional health. This anger on our streets, these borders, between the home and the office, you're already angry, you're upset about everything. KCCA, boda, Musiru police, Gamba Nogu. By the time you get to the office. So I want to tell you, you are the captain of your own ship. You make your choices. Huh? You can choose to be upset, or you can take it as an experience. Huh? So that's a bit of the balance that I know to avoid burnout. Obviously, there are many ways to balance in terms of how much raw material goes into your decisions. So some people make decisions with scant information because they are lazy, they don't read, they don't consult because they fear relations, because officers have mandates and jurisdiction. I don't want to go and talk to someone because my enemy, and then I make a wrong decision. You need to open up if you have to live a balanced life. The second question was, at what point do you know that you are failing or you are succeeding? So it's the way we interpret what we think is failure when we're going through it. It's the fact that you should see that whatever you're going through has a purpose. It may look dark, but that darkness, not everybody is going through it, and when they hit it at age 70, they will die. If you are hitting it at age 30, then you are learning. So I'm just telling you that you need to maintain a sense of focus and a mind that is open to learning, even when it looks like there's nothing to learn here. It's just trouble. It's just problems. Huh? And then when you turn around and say, but how did I know how to do that? So let me just give you an example. I told you nobody told me to handle exports. So anything to do with exports, I just jump on it. So Americans woke up the other day and said, we are terminating you. We've written to your ministers. There's no answer. We've written to no answer. So, all right, come Jan 1, we will cut you off. So I got on the plane. I had never been in front of a room of men and women, and I thought I wasn't prepared. These are former diplomats. These are CIA. And they have all these ideas about Africans who are related with some people, and they are coming to. So they asked me questions that were so embarrassing, to the extent that one of the African American head of a certain university, when we stepped out, he said, young man, God bless you. You know how to restrain yourself and answer people who don't know anything about Africa. So they would say, we give you $600 million. Why did you not support us on Ukraine? You torture and kill people, and here you're drenched in blood. You come and sit here, they're trying to make you upset. Huh? And so I told the stories of my country, the bad, the good, and the ugly, because I know their society has the bad, the good, and the ugly. They too have troubles. Huh? And when I stepped back, I said, who taught me to do this? It is the experiences I went through. When I was going through them, I thought, what is there to learn? But they build your capacity to do better tomorrow. I'm just hoping that helps you in terms of determination of success and failure when you're going through failure. I think the third question was an invitation from Nanyonga. Was that the name? Beautiful invitation, nice question. So can you let me think through this? Can you let me? So can you also let me consult my wife, because we make decisions jointly. I am not saying I'm not coming, I'm just asking for time to consult. Because if my wife and I share bank accounts, run the business together, and therefore if I'm going to join a club, and I like Rotary, I have to say they've invited me. So please allow me to cross-check. Huh? Robert from Kasubi, president of Rotary in Kasubi, Idi Amin's decision, was it love of country or personal? So let me tell you what love of country is. It's often making decisions that you would rather not make, but those decisions, when you make them, you know that you can handle consequences. because there had been, I'm sorry I went through a lot of history because I thought that you should understand this little fellow speaking to you, not a wise man. He comes to speak to important people. So I started you from 1856, but I was telling you, you are like me. If I tell that story, each one of you has a story beginning that period, if you care to find out. And so I told you how Uganda societies were formed. It wasn't just Uganda. It was Kenya. It was Tanzania. It was Zambia. They were all against Afro-Asians, Arabs who have joined politics and they run our businesses. Who are they? Jomo Kenyatta was the first one to chase Asians. He instead decided to buy their businesses and keep the skill and think through the decision he was going to make. You must have heard Raila Odinga say his first business was a factory disassembled from ginger. It's what gave him the oxygen plant he has in Kenya. He said he thanks Muyindi, who Idi Amin chased. Now he's in business. So I can really hate someone, but I need to think through the net effect on that. Secondly, there are many ways to deal with the situation. Really, because we could have taken some decisions if I were in Idi Amin's shoes to bring up Africans, to give them some means and capacity, to give them incentives. I still hear complaints today about foreign investor and local investor. That's a good complaint, but we need to hear ideas on how you stop me from borrowing at 19% to supply an order for China, and China borrows negative 1% and supplies me plastics. The conversation should be about how do I empower my own community without taking away the little that there is. Because we have paid heavily up to today. When I was in the US in that meeting, one of the issues was safety of private property. Why? You chased people in 1972. Really? 50 years ago? Okaliada, kadada. Education system, what should we do? So, you understand, this is a very important question that really requires time. I was yesterday speaking to someone about industrial design. So the British or our education system tells you about the factory, but they don't tell you that there's design, there's a prototype, there's a process before you get to the factory. They tell you carpentry, but they don't tell you what's behind carpentry. They give you a chair, but they don't tell you how to design a machine that designs a chair. The questions that my sister is asking are very critical. If we want to increase manufacturing in the country, if we want to lessen agricultural labor on borders, because what you see is agricultural labor running away because there are no factories, agricultural factories to employ them. There are some strategic decisions we have to make in education, and the private sector has to back some of those. So let me just give you one example. Your country has 41,000 square kilometers of fresh water for fish. It produces 168,000 metric tons of fish. Egypt has only 6,000 square kilometers of water, and they also have Egyptian winter. They make 1 million tons of fish. They make $2 billion a year. We make 130 million a year. So it's when you ask yourself, you think, but what's the issue? The issue partly is the things that I mentioned, the template I went through, attitude, mindset, but it's not enough. You need to add entrepreneurship and thinking about why am I doing what I'm doing in class versus what I earn. And by saying that, I'm answering my brother who spoke last about top schools. We need a conversation of the private sector, because when you know something and you can't put it to practice and you are asking for conditions to be right, you are not a leader. Sometimes you should force those conditions. You can't keep a template of the British of 62 years ago Yet you need manufacturing to stop border borders or people selling land to buy a border. You need us to do more fish because every 1,000 tons of fish creates 200 jobs. But how many of you are in fish? How many of you have fish ponds? I am sure some of us are building galimoleka buildings. I am sure some of us are doing things which are quick rental. But the real education, the practical one, the one that grows the country, is understanding your country at a granular level and know what do I do that gives me these factories I'm looking for. A kilo of tilapia is 12 euros in Europe. I think here it's like a fish is like 12 or 15,000 shillings. If we stand in the middle of that with coffee, with tea is going through trouble, but the Ghanaians drink $500 million worth of tea. I can go on and on, but the point is for me, education should be rounded, not just classroom, but a conversation between us as private sector, institutions of government, on the nature and type of system we want that will grow our economy. You might be Chelsea Captain Sally is how they call him in short, but you've not been given a position to deliver. Those words, not been given a position, it's very important. Huh? So unfortunately, maybe I'm not the right person to make these remarks because I'm surrounded by an aura of politics and what they hear about Ruabogo. But I can assure you, I knew nobody in this city. The only person I know was a fellow who brought me a book called Kakumiris in S5. At university, I just needed to figure out, and if you ask my friends who are with me at university, they didn't know all this, but it was packed in my heart. If looks can kill, if it looks quacks, like then it must be. No, sometimes you don't know who you are dealing with until you really get into contact with them. Nobody teaches you to fix what is your calling, and then other things line up because you've done the best you can. I have found people who do the best they can, even providence tends to smile on them. They will find a way like water to fix things. So I am not really taking away from the fact that some people have access. That Gambanogu story, I find those Gambanogus insulting to some of us. Our intelligence and our approach to issues is debate issues publicly, deal with situations as they are, face them. But Gambanogu is because you have not built capacity in your villages for jobs, and government is the only one. We are all fighting to get in. And where we have more relatives, there is more people in government. Huh? Am I entering a field that I can't handle, but I speak the truth? I think if I could spend time building an export credit fund and support 13 of our sectors and give people capacity to sell eggs to Congo at 3% interest, and they return that money and they give it to the chicken industry, that is better Gambanogu. That would be better Gambanogu. But we can reject that Gambanogu by starting at our home level. Children, start in your home. The adults we see have been raised or misraised somewhere. So if a home does not restrain you, an institution you work with does not restrain you, you don't have a social club that restrains your behavior, marriage does not restrain you, what will restrain you when you have an office? Nothing. Therefore, you do Gambanogu because you can get it your way. So, I've gone on this issue, but I'm hoping that you've not been given a position. Let's work hard at creating the necessary conditions for all of us to get better, and those conditions will line up with those who are working hard, and genuinely they will make it. The youth of today, responsibility, how do we deal with youth of today? The youth of today were babies. The old people of today were youth of yesterday. So if you ask anybody in 1962 or up to 72, they will complain about the minis. So I have a record I found somewhere. An old man, a group of people, some from Kigezi and Barara, in 1973, they came to Idi Amin and they said, you've done fantastic things for the country. First, you've chased away Munyonyo, called Indians. 2, you have banned miniskirts. You are really doing a good job. 3, you have banned political parties, no more religion and political parties. Finally, we want to ask you to become life president. Idi Amin did not know about life presidency. It came from us, from our people. The people who did that have long gone, died. I know their children. So sometimes when I see the children, I want to ask, do you know this? But I just keep quiet. So there are always issues for every generation. There are always young people facing issues every generation. But building a collective national ethic that says this is good because it is good, not because it is brought by someone. This is bad because it is bad, not because of who said it. So collective ethic is like if you see someone throwing a water bottle driving a Mercedes-Benz, you would run and park in front of the car and say, pick the bottle. Because this is our collective good that you are destroying. Building that ethic comes from education, comes from stories that often our older people don't want to listen to, that I'm sharing. You don't understand in Buganda that you can speak English through your nose, but at home, oyogero Luganda kumeza obulungi. They are trying to tell you that, yes, out we can connect, but there are things we learn at home. So suppose you extrapolated that across something you call Ugandanness. Because I see a lot of unfinished Uganda because of unfinished parents, unfinished individuals, and then we blame young people. I think that again is another conversation I could take a lot of time on. Christine, is it luck or favor? Or did I answer that? Okay, so some people have favor. Favor, unmelted favor, Christians call it grace. But me, I know that unmelted favor finds you when I was at school at 3 a.m. reading, if you want favor in class, tomorrow in exams. It always found me. So the schools I went to, one was called Barara School for Higher Education. I'm the first one to go to a private secondary school. They are washing bed sheets, but we have a small blackboard and we are 5. But I made it to Makerere. I don't need to bother you. That's okay. So I would carry my drink and some basin of water and go and sit in front of a school called Barara Secondary School at 10 and come back at 4. And favor arrived at 3 a.m. in mosquitoes and I passed the exams. So favor comes to those who are really working hard. So don't worry about Gamba Nogu is not favor, that's corruption. So let's not confuse corruption with favor and working hard. Mwesugwa, mindset of the old people needs to change. I think I agree with him. I think I answered it in a way. Let's not blame them when these fingers are looking at us. I think we need to do the right modeling. The word modeling is a powerful thing for young people. So I know you don't talk about religion in Rotary, right? But there are 2 people who model things that I still think are really interesting. One person died recently, Nelson Mandela. I found a picture somewhere that I keep. He's a head of state, and he puts on his shirt. Mandela had very difficult conditions, and difficult conditions are really interesting. They are an inflection point in people's lives. You are more forgiving when you've gone through suffering. Huh? So he gets on the plane, he's a head of state, he removes his shoes, he asks for a brush. He gets his shoes and he's brushing them on the plane. And everybody runs, it comes, no, President, you cannot. He said, I can brush my shoes. It doesn't make me any less of a man or head of state of South Africa. He's modeling to everyone on the plane, stop your legacy, live a light and simple life. The second one is a man who died 2,000 years ago, his name was Jesus, he says, although I am God, I bend down, I wash stinky feet of people who are following me, and I towel them, and I say, look, to serve people, to be a leader, you must serve the worst of your people. It's called modeling. What modeling are we doing in our homes, in our offices? What kind of modeling are we doing in procurement offices there? Every young person now studies procurement and logistics. Why has it become such a big course? Because we know something happens there. Finally, the top-notch schools, I think I answered this. Success does not come. Okay, so if I want my children to go through the things I went through, that's not right. They call that low emotional granularity, that you do not understand the emotions of people. You either know sad, happy. No, having a high emotional granularity means that you are like a painter with a big palette of color. You understand different innuendos and nuances if you have to lead a family or a business. And so education is not so much to do with where you went, although where you went can help. Where you got Budo, Gayaza, great. But I have seen Gayaza and Budo drunkards. I have seen Gayaza and Budo failures. But I have seen people who come from broken families, who went to schools like the ones I went to, extremely successful, extremely measured, extremely compassionate, extremely light on their feet, extremely forgiving, extremely emotionally strong, and they can go through life. Thank you. God bless you.